Okay, so let's start. Good afternoon, dear guests. Welcome to our 6th webinar on vertical farming as part of the Echoing Plus project funded by the European Union through Erasmus Plus. Through this project, we aim to empower young individuals to embark on a journey that revolves around essential and interconnected topics on vertical farming and entrepreneurship, including topics on sustainability, climate change, ensuring food security, and adopting smart farming practices. Echoing Plus is a 2-year project that involves organizations from 6 countries: France, Austria, Greece, Turkey, the Netherlands, and Portugal. You can learn more about the project through our website, and I will paste the link in the comments in a bit. So it's our pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker for today's webinar, Daniel Podmirseg. Daniel's educational journey took him through prestigious institutions such as the University of Technology in Vienna, the University of Applied Sciences, and the Academy of Fine Arts. In 2008, he showcased his expertise with a diploma on vertical farming for the City of London. His expertise research continued, culminating in a doctoral thesis titled Contribution of Vertical Farms to Increase the Overall Energy Efficiency of Cities, which was published by Collivier in 2016. I hope I pronounced it correctly. In addition to his architectural journey, Daniel dedicated himself to teaching at the Institute of Building and Energy at Graz University of Technology from 2010 to 2015. He also served as a scientific member during the same period while completing his dissertation. Before we start, I want to mention that we have 4 more webinars on the topic of vertical farming coming up, and you can stay updated by visiting our Facebook page. Well, without further ado, let's welcome our speaker, Mr. Daniel Podmirseg. Daniel, the stage is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. Welcome to all of you participants. Since we are a small group, then let's do it a little bit personal today. I'm very grateful for your invitation, Joanna, and I'm happy that you're interested in the topic of vertical farming. And I think this is one of the key challenges what we are actually facing. So we rapidly should think about in how to radically increase the food production, especially within the urban environment, and to keep apart this romantic picture what we have from agriculture itself for several reasons. Yeah, I would like to use the next 15 minutes to somehow sensitize to for the key challenges what we have, but also talk about, of course, about the opportunities when it comes to rethink the resiliency of the city. What you see here is a fantastic picture of Marfeld, what we all have in mind: fantastic sunset, beautiful colors, etc. This is a picture a little bit elaborated in Photoshop from our side. On the left side, you see Vienna, and on the right side is Bratislava. So these are 2 capitals. The distance is 54 kilometers from center to center. And in the center of it, we see Marfeld. Yeah. And several years ago, I published a very short paper, so therefore I invite you to read it, about the myth of Marfeld, because every citizen in Vienna is pretty happy to live next to it, because everybody has that feeling that it's somehow supplying the city with food. Yeah. In reality, that whole area is enough to feed the 6th district. So, and this is something what we have to be conscious about. So the 6th district, or a little bit more than 3% of all the citizens in Vienna. In reality, the agricultural land, what the city or the citizens of Vienna need, is more or less equivalent to the area of Burgenland. And here I'm not talking about the global hectares, but I'm talking about the cultivation area. Yeah. As a theoretical picture, just a theoretical one, and by asking ourselves, how many vertical farms would we actually need to make Vienna self-sufficient or autarkic in food production? Here we would talk about around 11,000 vertical farms in the size of, I don't know how many people of you are from Vienna, the size of the Unica Tower, so a skyscraper with 60 meters in height. You could say, well, this is pretty much, but at the other side, it only would be 8% of all the buildings what we see in Vienna. So this is something what is very important, that number, because we have a lot of unused spaces. It's 400 square kilometers in the whole Austria. So, and it's a great opportunity to think about in how to deal with these unused spaces. Yeah? When I'm talking about vertical farming, I'm not just talking about the new building typology. It makes sense to some extent, but on the other side, in the future, by considering multiple challenges like climate change, water use, energy independence from hydrocarbon energy, etc., then it actually makes sense to think about refurbishing existing buildings and using unused built spaces. Yeah? What would that mean? We could, again, coming back to our theoretical picture, if we say, okay, I hope there are no people from Burgenland now. Yeah, so we move all the people apart and we give that area back to nature. That would reduce the CO2 emissions equivalent of 3 megatons. And if nature starts growing again, that would bind 7.5 megatons of CO2 again. So we already see that there is a huge potential. Vienna is a very small city, although we became 2 million now, but try to imagine what it actually would mean for mega cities like Mexico City, Shanghai, etc., etc. In addition, we have, and this is, I think, the biggest advantage of our global sustainable development goals. I think it's also the only one where all the countries worldwide agreed to the same goals. We have 17 specific goals, and if you really think about what actually food supply or food production is related to it, Caroline Steele says food production or the food sector is addressing each and every single clause. We are a little bit more careful about that at the Vertical Farm Institute, but one of our key focuses when it comes into the development of urban food production, then we are talking about the climate action, so always thinking about our design decisions or our research and development goals, are they still consistent with these key goals? Climate action, responsible consumption, of course, like this webinar now, when we try to think about what does it actually do in order to supply ourselves with food, which impact does it have on life on land, life below water, etc., etc. So actually there is a huge possibility to really come closer to meet these goals. On the other side, as you all know, this is nothing new. Since 1995, we are meeting on an annual basis and talking about our climate challenges and our climate goals. And the reality, unfortunately, is that the CO2 emissions are still rising. There is no end in sight. Another question is what would the actual biocapacity be on Earth? So how much land do we actually have in order to provide ourselves with food? As you know, we have 500 million square kilometers, so this is the surface of the Earth. 150 of that is the land surface, and on the diagram on top of it now, I'm just give you an overview in how that land is used. A part of that is too cold for food production, a part is too steep, think about Himalaya for instance, or is too dry, the desert zones has bad soil conditions, and the rest of it would be suitable for agriculture. This is good news, because this is twice as much as we are using today. Unfortunately, the biggest part of that, what we still don't have in use, so the most fertile land we find under the forests. And this, unfortunately, is that what we are doing now. So while we are speaking through slash and burn practices, we are changing rainforests and captured CO2 into farmland. This is a picture what I got from Gernot Krömer from the Austrian Space Agency. It's a picture from the ISS It's several years old, but this is still an ongoing process. Yeah. In order to give you a feeling for scale, I just put Italy on top of it, and each of these tiny little dots, what you see here, are man-made bushfires, and the diameter is an equivalent of cities with around 20,000 inhabitants. And in addition, if the UN is right and we will become 10 billion people, then we need, in addition, the surface of Australia to produce the food what we need. On the other side, 179 exajoule. If somebody doesn't know what an exajoule is, it's a huge number. It is a number with 18 zeros. This is the primary energy demand of our food sector. So it's around 30%, and most of it, of course, is hydrocarbon energy. This is directly related to that land use what we have. Are there any vegans here in our round? Or vegetarians? You all are muted. I just say, okay,
Vegetarians.
we are vegetarians, of course. Plus minus, each and every one of you needs 2,300 square meters per year to supply yourself with food. From an energy perspective, of course, a part of it, of this primary energy consumption, what I showed you earlier, is related directly to the production or transport and distribution, because we have to keep these structural elements somehow together, and there are some let's say LGVs driving around. Then a big part of it is of course processing, and the rest is retail, preparation and cooking. And most of them, except cooking, is vertical farming directly addressing. So unfortunately, this is, no, it's the English slide, perfect. This is a diagrammatic representation of our food supply system, and the reason why I'm showing you that, this is very important because we have the opportunity and we must translate that into a function and space program for buildings. Yeah. So the more we are considering next to the production, so where's the equipment coming from? How do we deal with seeds? Where is the space for washing, processing and packaging, etc., etc. The more we are considering that within a functional space program in a building or within an urban district, the more positive externalities, of course, we are creating. Most of them are hard to represent in the business model. This is also a fact. But on the other side, it has an impact when it comes into the destruction of nature, which is an ongoing process, and the increase of climate change. So this is how it actually could look like. Think about the vertical farm center. The biggest part, of course, is related to the production, but you also could think about how to enlarge that for an educational hub, for training hubs, because the urban farmer or the vertical farmer, how we define it, will be the profession of the future. And of course, there are some food-related additionals, but you can think of in terms of gastronomy, show kitchens, stores, event spaces, etc., etc. So there is a huge opportunity to bring back life into a city on one side, on the other side, increasing the quality of semi-public or public spaces. And in addition, of course, you still have possibilities enough, if you make it clever, to set up a new business model and live from that. This is an example what I want to share today. Again, although that project is already done, it was a basic research project where the mayor of St. Pölten came to us and he said, guys, I have 3 buildings which are no longer in use. Can you just give me an inkling in what it actually means if we would make a vertical farm out of it? So we made an in-depth analysis of that. And one of the key findings or visualizations I would like to share with you is the moment when you start producing food in yourself, think about where are your stakeholders, where are your clients, who can you cooperate with, and all are within a short distance. So there is really the possibility to create or to enforce new suburban or sub-economic networks. These 90 meters, for instance, I just put in that you get a feeling for it, because 90 meters are plus minus that what is walkable within a minute. And then we came up with some functional space programs for that, where we actually said, okay, this part of the building could be directly translated to this greenhouse or the production entity. We also considered public program. Then, of course, we need circulation, which are a little bit more challenging than in conventional agriculture, and additional functions, for instance, for education. So all these functional space programs or studies then led to a kind of pre-design, and then we immediately start with our energy analysis, getting a deeper understanding in what is the light distributions, where can you produce what. This is very important because there are some parts in the building where you get very low light, and therefore you still can activate it for food production, but you shouldn't think about tomatoes or something like that. Yeah. So this is an integrated design tool, what we are using from the very beginning, where we immediately see this is the volume, what we actually can reactivate or activate for food production, and we see and we get immediate answers in what is the heating demand, the lighting power demand for lighting and for equipment, etc. And then we continue with our design process. I skipped that, perhaps that is too detailed, but just to give you a feeling of that. So you, by the end of the day, you create a multifunctional building. A part of it is producing food year-round, 365 days, and it's directly integrated in the suburban network. What really made me happy in that project, because that was our, how can I say, we developed the functional space program of one building together with students. And the beautiful part of it is if you're working with children until up to a certain age, they are totally open for that. Yeah. Then there is this teenage part, so these guys have been on the fringe, but that was so fruitful together because that functional space program, what we, by the end of the day, then proposed to the mayor, was developed with these kids. Another example I would like to share, that was a concept what we came up with within the funded program FFG for the Hascherhof in the south of the city. So there have been old buildings, and our proposal actually was, why not translate that into, let's say, a little bit more than a museum of everything what is possible to produce food. So we have conventional farming here on the outside, perhaps here you see it better in that rendering, organic farming, soil-based, healthy soil, etc. You have your greenhouse facilities, you have a vertical farm in there, and there are some additional spaces, for instance, here in that area where you get no light at all. Then this is the right space to activate for mushroom production, fish or insect production, etc. So what I want to highlight with that is everything, theoretically, everything can be grown indoor, yeah. But the key question always is, what is reasonable in terms of energy expenditures? And there are some products who actually need very little light, for instance, mushrooms or insects, and there are some plants, for instance, like tomatoes, which really need a lot of sunlight. Yeah. This is, and these are some international projects which are not related to us, but I want to share that with you because there are some other key focal points already also directly related to energy, but also to rethink the city or to establish a resiliency for the future. This is a greenhouse put on a super ugly residential buildings, yeah, set up in the 60s, yeah, a heating demand, where I would say already 100 years we would have been ashamed of, yeah. But in combination with food production, in this case with the greenhouse, they already reduced their heating demand by more than 40%. And they are just using the rooftop for that, yeah. Another example, there are a lot of pros and cons about that project, but I really like that because it helps us to sensitize about the possibilities when it comes into urban food production or when we are talking about vertical farming. Yeah? Vertical harvest, very important example, especially for their social agenda. So they are working together with physically and mentally disabled people, yeah, or handicapped people, and they are part of this operative process. It's in the middle of the Rocky Mountains, so in the US, and this is important to understand because that building really turned into a public space for that reason, yeah, and it has a completely different quality when it comes into the discussion of public spaces in America than here in the settled ancient European cities. Another example similar to that what we've seen before, so the combination with retail, with gastronomy and food production. The farmhouse, it's a rendering by Chris Brecht, an architect from Vorarlberg, just to open the eyes or the mindset again, is every space actually can be activated. And what I like on that project, because this is a kind of combination between also a huge support when it comes into the increase the quality, let's say the level of comfort, where you're actually combining greening facades with food production. This is a project what we set up with several years ago. That was in the first year when we got funded. We started as an association in the very beginning. There are a lot of firewalls, I think, in several cities, but especially in Vienna. And therefore, we reinvented the greenhouse. We just flipped it by 90 degrees. And also thinking about the energy synergy potentials. Yeah, actually, the residential buildings on the backside, here we are at the Naschmarkt, actually gets a food producing isolation. Yeah. Another project what we came up with, that was a proposal for Innsbruck. So I want to talk a little bit more about the section, is that what I always call the implosion of the food supply chain, what we have seen before. So the translation of the food supply chain into a functional space program, where you actually not only have your production entity, but you're also combining it directly with the gastronomy, with market, etc. And this is the energetic benefit of that building. We somehow implemented an osmotic wall, which can be, you can think about let's say a communication membrane between the vertical farm or the greenhouse itself and additional functions. For instance, when it comes into the discussion of the closing of material and energy flows, think about the CO2 and O2 emissions on one side, but also where to get the overheating of the greenhouse. It can be used from other functions. We did, as Joanna mentioned it already, I did a lot of teaching at the Graz University of Technology, and this is also something what should be radically intensified from my point of view, especially when it comes into the discussion with architects, because there are some key parameters when it comes into greenhouse production or vertical farming product, what you are not getting taught as an architect. I just want to highlight one point, yeah. The physics of light for the human eye is something what is completely different when compared to photosynthesis, for instance. Yeah. Again, this is also a design method what we, of course, integrated in that studio at Graz University of Technology too. First, get the right questions and the right answers in. What are the climatic conditions? What is the urban context? Just to get a feeling on that, what actually could be feasible, number one. And then start with your design process.